Okay, well, I think we'll get started. So my name is Ken Esty, and I'm very pleased to commence the Planning Commission for the evening of Thursday, April 8th. And thank you all for being here, and welcome. And so why don't we do some introductions? And again, my name's Ken Esty, Chair of the Planning Commission. Nolan, and then we'll take it from there. Nolan, you choose the next person.
Nolan Edgar, I'm the Commission Secretary. Jane next.
Oh, I'm Jane Douglas. I've been on the commission since last summer, late last summer, I guess. It's lots of fun.
All right.
And at least Kate.
Hi, I'm Kate Gehring. I've been on the Planning Commission since I think last month, and so far it is indeed lots of fun.
All right, and then Anne.
Hi, I recently joined the select board, and there seems to be money coming down from the state and the feds, and I thought it'd be fun to talk and see what we can do with it.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, we like that talk. That's good talk. Well, thank you for being here very much.
Sure.
Appreciate that. So, all right, then the question is, do we have any additions to the agenda? Okay, hearing no additions to the agenda, we move to the next item, and Nolan will upload or share. Oh, here we go.
Give me 1 minute.
Yep. And Lynn, welcome. So, Lynn, if you can hear, we are at the review and approval of minutes. We're just getting ready to share the minutes, and here they are.
Thank you.
All right. So far, so good. It's looking good so far. Everybody good so far?
Yes.
No one's just scrolling for us.
Feel good.
So far, so good.
Okay. Kate.
I'm not sure my brief was to do the short-term rental bylaw update, although I did attend the meeting. If I misremember, by all means, I defer to you all. I know I was planning to attend, but I didn't. So I'm in the next select board meeting who will attend. I did attend, but I don't think I was planning to, and I didn't address that.
I do.
Particular.
I remember I watched the video back. I remember you saying something like that.
Oh, okay.
But
then
maybe it wasn't like
the video remembers better than I do, for sure.
Maybe it was just a suggestion you had. I'm not sure.
Then as is. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. Whether we in fact do the things that we say, you know, whatever the case may be, yeah, I guess that represents what happened at the select board meeting was, by all accounts, just great, regardless of what the minutes may have asked us to do as such.
Well, then a post hoc apology. I somehow didn't recall it that way, so I apologize for not giving that update. Because I did not discuss that.
Yeah, well, quite all right. We can see if there's anything on the agenda tonight about that, but no, not tonight. Okay, so is there anything else on the how are we doing with the minutes? Are we looking good?
Looks
Okay.
good.
Is
Seeing no one?
sorry, correspondence is okay. I left it pretty vague, but
Oh,
email received.
well,
Like I wasn't sure who sent this email, so I didn't put who sent it.
yeah. Well, I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
Wyndham Regional Commission.
Okay.
all right. So we'll make that
All right.
change. Okay. So might we have a motion to accept the minutes of March 25th as amended?
So moved.
And might we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of, who's the second? Okay. Nolan, thank you. All those in favor of accepting the minutes of March 25th as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And so the
I
minute,
think I have to abstain because I wasn't there.
okay, correct. Yeah. Okay. So the fifth item on the agenda is unscheduled members of the public. I would take Anne's presence to be not exactly that, Anne being on the select board and not from the public, as we all are, but not in the role that we're accustomed to having for unscheduled members of the public who come to a planning commission meeting to speak to an issue that is on their minds. So I think then we're enabled to quite nicely move right into old business. So I'm very, very pleased, I think we all are, that Ann Golub has joined us this evening as a member of the select board to, I think for me, and I think for all of us really, it's a long awaited moment where the select board and the planning commission are really seeing eye to eye on the importance of the town plan and the relationship of the town plan to the future of the town. And so I think this evening, represents a high watermark in that aspiration, and that we've, reached a really great point to be able to do this tonight. And I'm sure, and I'm looking forward to, much more in the way of this kind of collaboration in the future. So I think we don't have to go in the order of A, B, C, and D in the town plan discussion as spelled out in the agenda. I might just pose the point maybe of going back to the select board on Monday, on select board meeting on Monday, April 5th, and a report back from, well, I have Caitlin and Jane, but, and also Anne, that you're here, maybe just to represent all four of you, to represent the spirit of the discussion on Monday and how we view what we discussed on Monday, the relationship of that to what we want to do from here on out. So perhaps who wants to jump in? I put it out, Kate, Lynn, Jane, and Anne. Who would like to begin?
I wouldn't mind just talking a bit about why I wanted to come meet with you guys and sort of trying to talk this through and see how what we might come up with. I just want to tell you a little bit about my background. I've lived here for 10 years now, but I work on Long Island in New York. And the work that I do there is for a small family foundation, and I'm in charge of their research. And so for 15 years now, I've been overseeing all this research that we do on the major issues impacting Long Island. So we've done a lot of work on the issue. And I know many people think that Long Island might be just a really wealthy community, but while it certainly does have those areas, it is also a region with a tremendous amount of poverty, shocking amounts of racial segregation, unbelievably segregated schools, young people leaving and not wanting to return to Long Island. So a real brain drain that's going on. And while the problems affecting Long Island are similar in some ways to what we're facing here in Vermont. The context is clearly dramatically different. So comparing a suburban community to a rural community is about as different, I think, as it can be. However, with all the work that I've done over the years, I've really gotten a good understanding of the nature of a lot of these problems, at least as they are realized on Long Island, and have been very much involved in coming up with strategies and approaches for trying to correct these issues. One of the big things that we've worked on at my job is the issue of the need for more affordable housing, the need for more transportation options, and the need for addressing the segregation in our schools. And I'm sorry, and also the loss of young people. So coming up here to living here in Newfane, I see a lot of the same issues, but reflected in different ways. And I think solutions would clearly be different than what they are on Long Island. So I just started, I actually joined the select board because I was interested in wanting to find a way to work on these issues. And then now there's all this money coming down. So now it's like, oh, this is exciting. This really is the right time to be working on this. I attended a meeting this morning that was led by Senator Sanders. And he was talking about, were you there too, Lynn? No. He was talking about all of the different monies that will be coming down, some of it earmarked for specific purposes like infrastructure, addressing climate change, public safety, economic development, replacing lost revenue, and some of it really at the discretion of the individual towns. So the federal government is allocating money directly to the state, and some of that state money will then be allocated down to the local level, and some money's coming from the state, from the federal government, are coming directly to localities. And they said in the meeting that we would be finding out in end of April, beginning of May, how much money would be coming down. And I asked that's when the money would come down. I asked the question, do we know how much would be coming to Newfane? I haven't gotten a response yet, but I'm going to try to follow up on that to see if we can get some sort of number. We don't have to spend the money immediately, of course. There are a couple of years that we have to spend the money. So we have time to think things through and get people's buy-in and do it the best way possible so that we can achieve what our goals are. So as I read through the town plan, there were a couple of things that came up in my mind. One, not having been involved with following what was going on with the Planning Commission or the Select Board prior to this. I will say that my husband was on the Select Board for 3 years during Irene. So I definitely saw how much work it is to be on the Select Board, but I haven't been following the issues recently. So what I don't know is what follow-up there may have been from the when you originally submitted the town plan. I spoke with Lynn maybe a week or so ago, and she shared with me the document that was written up at that time that was given to the Select Board describing short-term and long-term activities. I don't know what was followed through on those ideas or where some of those things might stand now. And that would be one thing that I would just like to put out there to say that would be really helpful just for me, for my knowledge, to know what the status is of a lot of the ideas that were discussed in the report. I know that some of the issues that the road crew would deal with, I believe they may be dealing with some of those issues because that came up in the road foreman's report this week. And it certainly sounded just like the things that had been discussed in the town plan. But there are obviously bigger ideas that you guys had in the town plan, and some big issues that you raised without necessarily having solutions, because solutions aren't always easy to figure out what they should be. So I guess the big picture of what I would love to figure out working with you guys is, A, what is the status of the various proposals that were made in the town plan? And B, at this point in time, what do you feel are the biggest, either the biggest ticket issues that we would want to address? Granted that the money that we get will probably not be enough to completely solve any one problem. So for example, if we're worried about issues like wanting to implement some sort of sewer system within the heart of the Newfane village, or if there were issues regarding need for more affordable housing, we may not be able to find the monies to resolve it in this tranche that's coming down in the next few months, but it may be enough to at least get us planning and taking some of the next steps. And I think that would be certainly useful. There may be other smaller ideas that are not as costly to implement that we may want to look at as well. I did see that, I'll just put this one other idea out there. I did see that in the Brattleboro Reformer, I think about a week ago, there was a big ad from Middlebury where they're offering to pay stores, businesses to come to Middlebury and settle there. And they're offering cash, and it wasn't really that much money. It was like $15,000, I believe. And they were offering a whole suite of services to assist any new company that would come in to get them up on their feet. They were providing a list of where all of their spaces, potential retail spaces would be that could be considered. And as someone who lives in South Newfane and has seen the decline of our general store and the what's now the Treehouse Inn is now for sale again. So who knows how long that will be in operation. But it feels like, and there certainly are other places around. In Williamsville, we have the eatery that just closed. So it feels like, you know, we definitely have those spaces here in Newfane that could be looked at for trying to find some new owners. Personally, I would love to see that happen. So I guess my first question is just really to say to you guys, what do you think? Do you have thoughts about what the big ticket items are, or some of the issues that we should be dealing with? And do you have thoughts about what process we might put together to try to come up with some ideas? It would be my thought, and you guys may have many better ideas, but I had a thought that it would be very helpful if we came up with a list of what we think the ideas are, and to start at least working on them, perhaps ourselves and bringing in anyone else, and then bringing it to the select board and saying, here are the ideas that we've been working on. You know, here are some small ticket items. Here are some really big ticket items. It's my opinion that if we have the bandwidth to do so, it would be great to start trying to research 3 or 4 different ideas to see which ones would actually pan out, because in my experience, a lot of things fall by the wayside once you start really trying to get into the details of it. I don't know what else to say. What do you guys think?
Yeah. Let's see. Maybe to start with, Lynn, given your leadership of the town plan and the immediate aftermath of the town plan, so we might go chronologically, and then and then Kate and I could speak to some recent efforts that relate to process. So Lynn, does that sound okay, or would you like me to jump in first? I can't see you right now for whatever reason.
Well, I'm here and my speaker's on. So
Great.
I think the only items that were dealt with were the roads, the speeding. And what I think the Planning Commission did there was support a group of people who were really upset about the speeding. And then the select board appointed a representative from each of the 3 villages out this way, Williamsville, South Newfane, and Brookside, to get together and come up with some suggestions. Bud Bergman was Charles Bergman, Bud was the representative here from South Newfane, and he came up with some amazing ideas and drawings for what can be done to slow people down in a good way. Not what we found was that stop signs are not supposed to be used to control traffic or control speeding. And I think I think Jay said that at the select board meeting last night or Monday. But if you narrow streets, if you narrow the road, and they're sufficient for the vehicles to go back and forth, but if you narrow them and then you have sidewalks or you have plantings or you have a roundabout, there are different ways to mitigate the speeding. But I think that is the only thing that the select board worked on. And so I will say that I think what has to happen is that there has to be, or the most effective way to get something through and supported by the select board is to have a grassroots group of people show up at the meetings and make a fuss. And one of those things they did do, the select board, the planning commission supported this group in having a meeting at Williamsville Hall for people to voice their concerns and stuff. And Marion, who was select board chair at that point, actually came to the meeting. She was the only select board member who came to that meeting. And that was great. So people kind of felt like they'd been heard. And now they're starting to see a little bit of improvement in the speeding. I see a hand. Does that mean you have a question? Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, so that, and it was a key initiative around, some transportation issues. If not in this order, I'll mention some other matters. Certainly the initiative around short-term rentals and trying to understand that issue, working with, and I should mention, Walt Dadick has joined us this evening, who's a member of the Development Review Board. Walt, welcome as always. And as you can see, Walt, Ann is with us from the Select Board. So we're really pleased and very happy about this. So at the behest of the Development Review Board, we started our investigation into short-term rentals. What are they? What is the issue? What can be done? How do we understand the relationship of short-term rentals to any update to the zoning bylaw? So that's been something that's occupied us for quite some time. However, it should also be noted, and that the Planning Commission went into, a hibernation from effectively mid-March 2020 into the summer of 2020. So that we were struggling with COVID and struggling with making quorum. We had some turnover, and we were doing some vigorous recruiting, and things just didn't work out until they did. And so we've had a uninterrupted string of meetings since the end of, I'd say, mid-August. So we've been on a good run. But a lot of our work has been focused around short-term rentals. Much could be said there, but to move on to the next big initiative, I would say, has been, and Jane will address that tonight, would be the Communications Union District and the relationship of that to broadband and communication, as well as the implications for economic development. So that's been significant, advancement of some of our work. At least in terms of content. So we've talked about transportation, short-term rentals, which we see as an economic development matter, but also an affordable housing matter, and also the broadband initiative. Also being in contact with, Lynn, help me on this one. When Deb Luskin came to visit the Planning Commission, was that pre or post completion of town plan? Because that was a forest block matter, and it wasn't our work. But
Are you talking about the Green Mountain conservation that Deb Luskin was involved in?
right.
Oh, that's way after the town plan. Town
Yeah.
plan was finished in the summer of 2018.
Yeah. So not that we were involved in that initiative, but we were present for it, and we were, we were in a meeting with them at the Planning Commission. So we were just delighted to know about the work, because it was definitely in accord with the issue around forest block preservation and so on. So that's by way of content. Kate, do you want to, would you mind, if you do, I'm happy to jump in, but to talk about the précis that we're working on, because this is now a process point that I think Anne should be fully apprised of.
And Ken, by the way, Nolan's been raising his hand.
Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't get to see everybody at once. So let's go to Nolan first, and then Nolan?
And I just had a correction to make. I joined March 2020, so I think the Planning Commission hiatus was probably the summer of 2019 until March 2020, right?
Well, March 2020 is when we hit, that's when we hit the COVID.
That's right, but that's when I'm pretty sure that's when I joined the commission 1 year ago.
Okay, well, I'll take a look, but I know, well, okay, whatever the case may be there, and you may be right, we didn't have a consistent set of meetings from March until really August. So there was a considerable, gap in what we were able to accomplish at that time.
I think we were pretty much spotty from the end of 19 through at least through the beginning of March. Bob McCandless was in California, and I was gone for a few weeks too.
Yeah. Okay, great. So Kate.
Unmute, of course. So Ken and I have been a small working group following up on the 2018 priorities list, and we have worked through kind of summarizing the various sections of the town plan though there's so much detailed information, to kind of get to a shorter description of we've broken it down into sort of ideas, value, core challenge, a short list of folks who are already working on these issues, and then issues that we think are kind of the top priority in each of the sections, based on things that have already happened or are underway. For example, broadband was a very high priority. It still is, but that is underway. So it's less of a top priority in terms of next steps. That said, we're still in working group and draft form, but the idea is to, again, make a kind of shorter working document that we can collaborate on, but kind of help that make a kind of working document that reflects the developments and changes of the last few years, which are significant, I think, in terms of many of these issues with the town plan. Ken, please.
Yes.
Correct,
Yes.
et cetera.
No, that's great. I'm going to illustrate that now because I believe that I can bring up a document for a screen share. So you'll see that, for instance, in the town plan, there's a section on natural resource use and conservation. You know, so what is the core idea? You know, and then scrolling down, you know, what is the core value? And then, you know, what is the core challenge? And I won't read it, but you can scan it as I'm scrolling. So, for instance, the core challenge would be given the reality of accelerated climate change and the increased likelihood of local and regional flooding, it is necessary to amend the Newfane zoning bylaw to promote hazard mitigation and lessen the risk of property destruction. More state funding in the case of disaster will be possible through such bylaw amendments. Now, Kate and I were thinking the next two sections would be, you know, what is, and help me, Kate, is that section D would be what is being done? Is that right?
Yeah, roughly. And we've tried to make it short, but what's happening and who's working on it now.
Right.
So where there's stuff underway and people we should be in touch with.
Right. And so we're about a week away, I would say, from combining the work that Kate's been doing, the work that I've been doing, and drawing upon the document from 2018 to put together a document that sort of actuates or enlivens or makes real, you know, the promise of the town plan, but in a way that's accessible and, you know, we hope will be widely read, particularly by the select board, but then by others, you know, who want to understand what the town plan is, but, you know, just don't have the bandwidth for, you know, 80 or 90 pages. So that's what we've been doing by way of process. So the first part of the answer, and it's a long answer, but I think we hope to make it worth it for you, is excuse me?
I said it is. This is great. Go ahead.
Good, good. So what we have been doing content-wise, what we're trying to do process-wise, so that we can get back to content questions. Now, the payoff here is that you're asking us, you know, what do we think is rising, in a sense, to the top for the consideration of the select board. I think maybe at this point in time, because I think it's fair to say, and this is where, if I don't see your hand, planning commissioners, or just speak up, but I don't think as a planning commission right now that we can say to you, oh, these are the 4 areas, or these are the 5 areas that we must deal with. Okay, sure. A couple of weeks ago, we had a great session on food insecurity from local figures and activists, Scotty Tabachnik, Rob Halm, Gloria Cristelli, and Christine Coalition from Brattleboro. And that led us into really substantial discussions about housing affordability and transportation. So that's something that happened back in March. Certainly, Lynn and I, for a long time now, have had in the back of our minds, you know, the zoning bylaw section that Putney did around flood hazard. And, you know, the point that I make at the bottom of the core challenge here is, you know, a zoning bylaw that enables us to gain more monies from the state in the case of an emergency, you know, around, you know, flooding and such. So a zoning bylaw amendment there might be useful. So that's another issue that we've been thinking about off and on. certainly, Lynn, you well remember before we lost Bob that we were working on energy and a whole separate revision to the town plan on energy and such. So that was something that the Wyndham Regional Commission asked us to do, but then it sort of seems to have fallen off by the wayside, not because we let it go, but because it just doesn't seem like somehow or another that issue has seemed to have faded.
The person who was heading that
Yes,
at Wyndham Regional Commission left, and then we ran into COVID, and
right.
she left, and a couple of other people left, and John Bennett was left holding responsibility for an enormous amount of different ideas, and I think they've just gotten full staffed now.
Yeah. So, who knows, maybe that comes back into play. So the other part too, I should just to back up a little bit, Ann, too, is we've only been at full strength for just relatively short period of time. So just getting to quorum was a big challenge, and now we're at 5, and I'm feeling as pleased as can be. And I feel like we're ready to go forward. Exactly what the 4 or 5 things should be. I think this might be a good time, for Jane, Nolan, Kate, Lynn, what comes to your mind when you think of 1 or 2 issues that relate to the town plan that we might put forward as something eligible for funding or further work? Because I think that's what Ann is. Is that a fair way to pose your point, Ann?
I think that's very accurate.
Okay. So I'd turn it over to Jane. Maybe just, how about Jane, if you could start?
Well, I think the group that we met with a couple of meetings ago had pretty much 2 items. They were supposed to be there to talk about food insecurity, and they pretty much said the 2 biggest problems in town are lack of public transportation and lack of affordable housing. That really, everything else we've managed to meet pretty well. Transportation, I don't know, the group that runs the bus all through Wyndham County, I'm not sure what the routes are anymore. I don't know what the incentive would be to get them to move a bus, up as far as Newfane. They go all over Dover, all over Brattleboro, Putney. I'm not sure that anybody's done any research on that. And as for affordable housing, it's impossible to build multiple family houses in Newfane because there's no sewage treatment plant. So you have to put in a giant septic system, and in the middle of town, there's no room for a giant septic system.
Right.
That's all right.
Okay.
Let me jump on that just for a minute. There was discussions with Wyndham Regional Commission regarding a way many towns are dealing with the septic, and it's a shared septic for fewer than a large plant. And so that was a meeting that happened, I think, 2 years ago with Wyndham Regional and a number of towns that were nearby. Newfane wasn't at the place where we'd even started talking about that yet. And we were warned very strongly, don't start talking about it right away until you're ready to move on it, because people will freak out. And there's a lot of, say in the village of Newfane, if you were going to propose something like that, what does that mean for each individual homeowner? How much it's going to cost? There's all those issues that come up. So there has to be quite a bit of research and work done before that is shared, I guess. It's not for lack of transparency, but for being able to be effective with something like that. The transportation, there was also a group from Wyndham Regional Commission, and I think it was in 2019, early on, it was probably 2016 or 17. and Wyndham Regional had gotten a grant for some people to work at Wyndham Regional. And they came out, the representative came out and was working on, had groups come together for transportation. Unfortunately, it was publicized poorly. Very few people came to that meeting. And the young man who was leading it could have taken some more training, let's say it that way. So that was an issue, but the transportation, they were talking about having the MUBOS go from Stratton all the way to Brattleboro through Newfane, which would be definitely beneficial and speak to the thing you were talking about, Jane, with the lack of transportation. And then Ken, do you mind if I continue?
Oh, yeah, no, that's fine. And then when you're done, we'll go to Nolan and then to Kate. Yeah, but keep going, please.
The housing, there are two things. They also had a regional marketing group, and it was the same kind of situation where you had representatives, and mostly business representatives from the areas from Stratton down to Brattleboro and all the different towns in between. And the problem they ran into was that they didn't want there was a real pushback on having any kind of chamber or any kind of structure. So you never knew who was going to show up to the meetings. And when you never know who's going to show up to the meetings, it's really hard to get anything done. So the people that have a real business acumen, as opposed to a number of artists and very right-brained people who are brilliant in their field, there was some pushback from those people, again, toward the people who were going, hey, this is business, let's do it, this is how we can do. And there was a lot of effort done to develop a brochure. And I think the pushback, basically, the person who was running with that idea just said, okay, I'm done. So that's the kind of issue that goes on regionally. With housing, one of the issues that we have within the zoning bylaws is that we have setback requirements. And so if you have to have 2 acres for a house, that creates a problem for having like a small house or 2 small houses on one lot. And that's something that I think would be beneficial and could work with, if you had 3 houses on one lot with a shared septic, I think that might be a way to go if we can locate appropriate properties. We only have one, they call it a duplex, and that's right on 30, and it's where Merle used to live. I'm sorry, I forget the cross street there. So, but the problem is
Grimes
the
Hill.
zoning bylaws require.
It's Grimes Hill.
Grimes Hill. I wasn't sure. The zoning bylaws say you have to have so many feet between you and your neighbor, between you and the road, and it's required how much land you have to have for a house. And so if somebody has for a permit for something that's different than that, then they go to the DRB, and the DRB can't approve it because the zoning bylaw says something different. So it's something that I was hoping once we finish the town plan, that we'd be able to move on and start working on making the zoning bylaws match what the town plan says. So if the town plan says we support different kinds of housing, then the zoning bylaw should support that and say what needs, so maybe it's in the village in Newfane, it's a ½ acre. So maybe it's a ½ acre if you have shared septic. But I think the real thing is the matter of perhaps, as you said, Anne, the funding to be able to study those different things and come up with planning to do it.
Just as a quick question, This is something I've seen on Long Island, and I've seen it when I travel. I'm curious what your opinion is here. Is there an impact from the increase in short-term rentals
Mhm.
on a decline in the rental market? Because this is my personal bugaboo with Airbnb.
I think we've talked about that back and forth, and there are different opinions on whether it really impacts. It could impact long-term rentals if the cost to rent something here is quite high.
Mhm.
And so whether or not, I don't know. And we don't really, we've been kind of trying to figure it out and feel it out. And there's a lot of opinions about it, but we don't have any actual statistics
Mhm.
on what that is.
Okay.
And without finding out, hey, person down the street, if you could have rented this place for $2,000 a month, would you be able to do it? There's the affordability issue. And I think there was an example at our last, at the meeting where they were talking about affordable housing, where there was somebody who was in a rental right in the center of Newfane Village and had been paying, I think it was $1,200 a month, and was told to leave because the person could get $1,500.
Wow.
So, so there's the affordability, I think, is really a big deal.
Mhm.
And short-term rental operators will say, well, it's affordability for us because without it, we can't pay the taxes and we can't keep up the homes and we can't do the things that the short-term rental money and income affords us. So there, affordability is a key concern of many different kinds of constituencies, and that we've been able to discover. And the thing is that, the creation of an opportunity to do short-term rental might, foster that kind of activity, but in homes that couldn't otherwise support, a long-term rental anyway. So there's that dynamic, and we've come to learn about that and appreciate it. Even as I have a lot of concerns, I think we all do on the planning commission, about the short-term rentals and just not knowing, just not really knowing what we're up against or what we're dealing with. Even as we hear and read about 5 letters at the last planning commission meeting, with people pleading with us to just wait until the state gives us some guidance, which I think we heeded that call, but it doesn't mean that the issue of short-term rentals and the affordability question goes away. It just, we just have to find a good way to manage it and deal with it and get the input.
I'll just say, Kate, I see you've got your hand up, but I'll just finish my thought. What I have found from work I've done, again, mainly on Long Island and from observations in other places, is the issue isn't so much people renting out a room in their house, because that is definitely a way for them to be able to maintain their home, pay the taxes, pay for the maintenance, etc. But the bigger issue tends to come, and the impact on the housing market tends to come when people buy an additional property and are renting that out short term rather than allowing it to go on a long-term rental. And that is where I believe the real impact comes on housing. It's not someone renting a room or rooms within their own home.
Right.
I think the other thing is that I was just talking with someone before the last planning commission meeting, and when there were quite a few people who were emailing me about the short-term rentals and our proposed or our draft bylaw. And this person has lived in Newfane his whole life and just bought another property to be able to rent out as a short-term rental. So I'm wondering if, I don't think he would have bought it if there was a limitation on that. And I don't think that house would have gone to long-term rental. I think it would have just been on the market to sell. So you know, that's the other part of it.
Yeah, Kate?
I would say, Anne, the point that you make, I think that's exactly the issue, and it's one that I had the sense, and I'm pretty new to the conversation of the Planning Commission, but that's the issue that we're sort of dancing around a bit, and how you articulate that in any kind of rule, how you make that distinction. Nolan, that I was realizing that my short-term rental assignment was to update on the status of the proposals in Montpelier, and that was definitely. And that's one place where, we said, we'll wait till the state regulates because that will affect what Newfane would do. And from what I understand, there was a House bill proposal on short-term rentals that has really languished. And somebody told me, not a legislator, that they didn't think it would get out of committee, but just somebody who was shooting off their mouth. So I don't know how true that was, but there's a Senate bill that just went to the House that is a rental bill. And it would create a registry of all rentals, including short-term rentals. So it's a very late arriving effort to collect some of that data, I think. I didn't reach out, but I think we might want to, as a group, reach out to Becca Ballant, is one of the sponsors of the Senate bill. And I know this is a big issue in Brattleboro because Brattleboro's had a housing shortage of all kinds for a long time, and various groups have tried to address it. I noticed that Emily Kornheiser was one of, also local, not our rep, but nearby, was one of the sponsors of the House bill that I didn't contact them directly, but this is one that I think has not moved out of committee and perhaps won't. But I think this is a big issue everywhere, but it's a good one to continue to think about and get at, because whether it's a house that will be bought that's a smaller house or a rental, long-term housing for folks is an issue, both rental and working people, whether they'll rent or buy, whether they can afford to do that here. So
yeah, well, thank you. Nolan?
So I don't have much to add. I'm really in agreement with what Jane started with. Mostly interested in, what I think most important is to focus on the issues that were brought to us by that panel.
Yeah.
Which is what we're all talking about anyway. So.
Yeah. So since Walt is here, I believe, let me just check. Walt, you're still here, I believe. Walt, basically, I think you've heard what we've been doing here. So would you like to add to the conversation from your situation and station at the DRB? And you're on mute. I can't see if you're trying to talk, but you are on mute.
Yeah, basically, you kind of, I think we're marching to the same drummer. We both feel the same way. Our job, of course, is to implement your decisions, basically. And I guess the biggest issue that we perceive is the short-term rental situation versus the long-term rental situation. And I guess you covered that pretty well. The fact that there's a real concern of striking a balance between the people that need the income to maintain a residence in Newfane and the people that use it to make profit and take long-term rental properties off the market. And that's a real dilemma. And I don't know how you resolve it. But I don't have anything new to add. I basically second the motion on what you folks have been saying.
Right. So maybe as a way to summarize then, we're looking at maybe there's a certain kind of defensive action trying to take care of certain situations, but not having the imagination, because it just didn't seem possible to actually do something new and different, with additional monies that are possible to us. That's not something we've historically, at least in my historical memory, have had that possibility of that opportunity.
Right.
A nice problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jane, did you have a hand? I see a hand in front of you. I don't know if it's a.
No hand in front of me.
Okay, I can see a hand, but, all right. So, yeah, so,
No, I was just saying that the one, I mean, the broadband project is one place where there is money coming at us very rapidly, and we're ready to spend it. So we're ready to go with that.
Great.
You know, we've got bids in, and the first 6 towns, we want to get them started before the end of the summer. So it's but we need millions and millions of dollars, and apparently there are millions of dollars floating around to be grabbed. So it's the one project that needs a lot of money, and strangely enough, it will have all the money it needs.
Yeah. Well, that's a real bright spot.
well, I hope, Ann, this gives you at least, even in its incompletion, perhaps, it gives you I hope all of what we did tonight gives you like the state of our question, like where we are at right now, for all of the good and for all of the completed things and the incompleted things, the ideas formed, the ideas half formed. That's, I think we've given you like what we're about right now.
Okay, sounds very good to me. If I could just read to you the questions that I was interested in thinking about in terms of Newfane, and some of these may already be part of your thinking, some of them definitively are. So one issue that I'm very interested in thinking about is how can we attract a younger and more diverse population to the village? And I think one critical component of figuring that out is figuring out more affordable housing. But I also think there's more work that we can do to be thinking about how to make our town more vibrant, more dynamic, get more commerce going. So I'm interested in the issues of housing, transportation, thinking about how to get more business here and more support for businesses, and thinking about how to, in essence, create a more of a sense of a community. And I know there were a lot of things when Newfane and New first started. They had a whole slew of ideas. I read a report that I was able to find from 2014 that was done with the WRC, where they were looking at a whole bunch of ideas. And I know a lot of that then also showed up in the town plan, but at least I'm unaware of a lot of those ideas having been followed up on, although certainly some ideas morphed into new things, like certainly all the work that I know Gloria and others are doing around the issue of food scarcity and trying to address some of those issues. I think what I'm very interested in reading the summary that you do of the town plan. Remind me, when did you think that would be available?
Yeah, Kate?
Well, Ken had said next week, and forgive me for jumping in. I was just going to say that I think the issues you raise are very much the issues that we have found are queued up in the town plan, sort of the town plan modulo, in particular the last year's developments, which have accelerated some trends, in particular housing scarcity, but have highlighted issues at the schools and the need to support new families, young families, and ways to do that. And I think it makes sense for us to also probably get everybody else's feedback on that. But I think it what Ken and I have been doing is also keeps up exactly those questions and thinking about where we go, or what the top angle of approach is in each of those. I don't think we have answers. And Ken, maybe you look like maybe you think I'm getting out ahead of my skis, but from my point of view, what you're saying is exactly what sort of comes up when we abstract the town.
Okay. Right. One thought I would have is that as the next step is when you have that plan ready to be read, to then start, I don't know what you guys are thinking of in terms of your next steps. You know, I know there's definitely are pieces that are very much planning commission roles, like thinking about the zoning and updating those components. But I would also think it would be fun to start thinking a meeting about these issues and how we might go about, if there are items that need more studying, thinking about how we might study them. If there are issues that require more research, that's something I'd love to do. And talking to people and, you know, what I have found really useful on Long Island, especially when we run into a lot of negativity around certain ideas, is we build up a list of what others have done. And what I've tried to do over the years is make people on Long Island feel really competitive with the fact that New Jersey is doing all of this affordable housing and we're not. Now all young people are going to move to New Jersey and none of your kids are ever going to come back to you. And that actually is really effective. So I think there are some good lessons that we can tap into from other parts of the country, and even sometimes around the world, of how people are able to sell some of these ideas, creative ways of doing some of these ideas. One of the things that I noticed that in the town plan, you talked about accessory dwelling units, or the mother-in-law flat. And that was a huge thing that we worked on Long Island. And it was, we were very influenced by the work that they're doing in California and around, was it in San Francisco, perhaps? I can't remember exactly, but they came up with model zoning, models of homes that had been approved by the zoning department, and they put it out on their website. So if you wanted to go ahead and build an accessory dwelling unit, they made it so easy for you. They gave you the plans, which were pre-approved, and they sort of just spoon-fed it to you in order to make it a much easier process. I think that there are some really good ideas of how we might look at some of these issues and look for examples of what others have done that might or might not work in a place like Newfane.
Yeah, so Lynn and then Jane.
Couple things. One, there is a Southern Vermont Economic Conference coming up.
I'm going to it.
And a number of times attending those, there are examples of what other towns have done. I know that Richard Amore, the housing community development up in the state of Vermont, would be able to put us in touch with a number of studies that other towns have done. I'm not especially about housing right off, but I'm thinking, I think, Anne, you and I discussed the properties that are owned by the town because of FEMA.
Mm-hmm.
And so there were some really great examples of what a town could do with those properties and still be complying with the rules that FEMA set down of not being able to rebuild on those.
Right.
And that takes me to young families, where when Newfane and New first met, and it was in 2014, and we talked about, we had the different ideas that WRC was working us through. And the woman who owns Rick's, or owned, I'm not quite sure what the status of that is, said, do you know, there's not one idea that people here have come up with that is of any interest to anyone younger than 40 years old. And so that meant, because we had, you know, all of a sudden, for me, it was a slap, and I thought, oh, we're not talking about what are kids going to do if they come here. There's no mini golf anymore. We don't have any arcades. We don't have anything for them to do. And so young families are not going to be happy bringing their kids if there's nothing for them to do. So that's an issue. So I think touching base with Richard and that whole department might be able to give us a lot of the information or examples, as you're saying, that we could say, hey, look, you know, as you're saying, Middlebury did this, and oh, such and such did that, and if they're not too far off in size and scope and population, I think you'd have some. You might have just a little bit of competition coming. Yeah.
Jane.
It's funny because in the last week I've talked to two different people who both complained that Newfane had a horrible reputation for anyone who wanted to start a business or build a house or anything in town, that somehow or other Newfane has made rules and procedures that make it just really a pain in the ass to get something done. And it's kind of, I guess it's more just a perception thing, but you know, if you want someone to come to town and, you know, start a small business and they hear how it just took forever and they got, you know, all these setbacks, and every time they go 2 steps forward, there'd be 1 step back, that's somehow or other we need some way to streamline and clarify the processes for some of these things, because apparently we do have a reputation around for being difficult to deal with. You know, I heard it from 2 different people, which was surprising, and in 2 different completely separate situations. But
were they business people?
What's that?
Were they business people?
Yes. Yes. So I guess it kind of, you know, I had never thought of Newfane as being difficult. It is hard. We are really a bedroom community. We are not a business industry kind of community. We're not a ski town. We really, people who live here tend to work in Brattleboro or Westover or somewhere else. But apparently for people who want to start small businesses here, the process is just unbelievably difficult. You know, and I was just seeing the other day, Montpelier has been working for 3 years with the Hilton Corporation to put up a hotel in town. And every time they get 1 little step forward, someone else would put up a lawsuit or some other rule or regulation that they had to modify to get it done. And finally, Hilton just said goodbye and left. So now the city of Montpelier has to pay all kinds of fees and bonds and things. It's going to cost them a lot of money, and they have nothing to show for it. So I don't know what our process is for people trying to start small businesses in town. But whatever it is, I do think I've heard quite a few people lately saying that we really need to look at that process and formalize it and make it easier.
Okay.
Did those people actually start a business here?
Yes, both of them did, finally, but it was a long and agonizing process.
I wonder how much Act 250 had to do with it versus Newfane.
I don't think Act 250 had much to do with either one of them. They were talking about dealing with Newfane.
Yeah, Kate.
Specifically the select board, you know, or was it otherwise?
I
The select board has a bad reputation.
I don't want to rat anyone out, you know, and I think the perception, one of the people, his perception was that there were some older people that he was trying to deal with who thought that everything Newfane was just lovely, just the way it was, and didn't want to change anything.
Oh, delightful. Yeah.
How long ago was it?
Yeah, I was at
one of them, he's an established business now, so it was probably 5-6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Mhm.
He told me blatantly that if he had to try to do it over again, he wouldn't bother because it had been such a pain to do.
Yeah. Let me get Kate in. Kate, you wanted to get in on this.
I don't know your conversations, Jane, but I know that in the past, even among people who are already living and working here, there has been I have heard many times that they have not been able to get responses from the select board, and that has been very discouraging, or has discouraged their larger civic participation. I don't weigh in on, lots of factors can affect people's perception of that, but I have heard, and no names were ever mentioned, but I have heard that many times as a kind of Newfane specific comment. And I think reaching out and inviting people in and finding ways to have them feel they're participating as well as being heard is really important. This is not so much a planning commission comment, but even with the mutual aid, we have talked about finding ways to fund babysitting and meals at select board meetings. Maybe that would extend to planning commission meetings as a way to just make it possible for people to attend. What doesn't apply on Zoom. But I think there are big ways, business incentives, but also much smaller ways to just help people be heard and participate. And that feeds the sense that this is a welcoming community. I don't think young families are only looking for business incentives, but for a place where they feel they can come into a community that will support them. I think the school access is another big issue, but that more from my hop on to Jane's comments about being able to do things here, but I think being heard by town government is important.
So we'll go with Lynn, and then what I'd like to do is offer some wrap-up comments, if that will be okay with everybody. So Lynn.
So again, two things. I was at one of these economic conferences, and somebody was talking about, I think it was, and Ken, maybe you remember what town it was. There was a town that had no downtown. They had no common, and they had applied for a village center grant to be able to create one. And they said, well, we don't want to be a sleepy town like Newfane. I was like, oh, yes. So there's that's our other thing. Even, when I go, I know we used to have a theater, we had a bookstore, we had all these people come for the not tag sale, but where they sold junk.
Flea market.
Flea market.
Yeah, the flea market. So that was one. The second one is a few years ago, the state, every town who wanted to, gave the state information about their town and the villages in their town. And the state came down and they did a tour starting down in Brattleboro, maybe Guilford, but I know Brattleboro. And they went through every town, and they came to Newfane, and they saw the museum. Of course, they saw the courthouse, and they just thought, we were the bee's knees. They thought we were great. Of course, they were and they were under 40. So, there are some things here that are really, really great. Otherwise, we wouldn't live here. But I think also, you and I talked about the marketing. How do you rebrand Newfane? And I think that's something that, in order to attract young families, we would have to rebrand Newfane as a welcoming, inclusive, vibrant place.
Yes. Oh, thanks, Lynn. So the sense that, are we good? I'm just looking at my notes. Okay. Yeah. Lynn, I think if you shut off your video and then finish, I may have cut you off because I couldn't hear you.
I think she finished.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so, all right. So we're at the 7:15 mark. We could decide to go longer, but allow me to just say that what we did is sort of provided for Ann, what I'll call the state of the Planning Commission and our current thinking, and giving us her sense of the priorities and how we can, and that key question, how can we attract the younger more diverse population. And the essence of the question, how can we have more of a sense of community? We responded, and then, now going to the next steps. Kate and I will continue to work on the précis for the town plan over the course of the next week. And then there's the matter of the next select board meeting, which we would presumably will be attending to pursue this conversation. We're quite aware from Ann's report, and I'm sure we'll get more detail, that monies are available in various modalities, and we need to be super attentive to that so we can get on board. I guess the next question, is there anything else as far as next steps that we should describe right now and memorialize for our benefit? Do we see any other next steps we should be pursuing right now? And this is for everybody.
I would propose that in addition to your completing the précis that you're working on, which sounds like it would be very helpful, is for each of us just to think through what we think the top either next steps or key issues that they might want to focus on, so we can begin to put together some concrete actions to follow from here, whether it's a need for researching more particular issue, maybe there are questions we feel we really need to answer before we know how to move forward, whatever it may be. But I think we all have a pretty deep understanding of what the overall issues are, and it really becomes the next harder step, I think, is to figure out, where do we begin with them? Where do we begin to dig in? I personally have some opinions, and I will start putting some of those things together, but I think we could have a pretty interesting next conversation by pooling our thoughts and ideas together. And then I think we might be ready to bring some of the development of our thinking to the select board, and get their input as well, and then figure out what our next step should be.
Okay, I'm taking feverish notes here myself, and so on what you're saying, Ann. So,
Okay.
pooling, as you say, pooling our thoughts, then bring it to the select board, get their response,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next step you would see. Yeah, so we're pooling our thoughts, bring it to the select board, get their response, and then we can we can move to the next step.
Yeah, because ultimately what I would hope we could achieve in a relatively short period of time, not saying what that time frame is, I think that's for us to figure out, but relatively short, is to figure out what are our top 3 or 6 issues, and how do we want to begin to figure out addressing them. And I would guess that at least a couple of them, the answer would be to start doing some more research and figuring out what questions we need to answer, and then figuring out how to go about doing that. There may be other issues where there's been enough work done prior to this that research may not be necessary, and we may be ready to define, if we just had this little pot of money, here's how we would apply it. Whether it's for things like, some small wins, like I saw that there was in the town plan, you talk about bicycle racks that I don't know that I personally have ever seen. Things like that. So like that, I think that the way for us to be successful is to look at not only the big issues, but the small wins, because it's the small wins that keep people hopeful that maybe some of the larger issues might actually come to be resolved. So I vote for big and small.
That's right. And the main thing is, as long as the small, it leads to the bigger. That's the that we don't get caught up in the small things only, but that and because small wins are a significant dimension of really good organizing, is when people can feel like they've actually accomplished something.
Right.
So, and that they did it together, you know, and that's a huge morale builder. So, no,
Could I just tell you a quick story?
sure.
I attended a conference many years ago by, I'm blanking on the name of the foundation in the moment, but it's the folks who started the Vermont Country Store, and they have a foundation that's all about planning, and they talk about planning in terms of heart and soul. And at the conference I went to, there was a gentleman who talked about a project he had done, I think it was in North Carolina, where they were building a boardwalk that would go along some part of the town along the water. And I saw something in the town plan that talked about wanting an idea, and I don't know that this is realistic, but nevertheless, it was an idea to build some sort of pedestrian path from Williamsville to South Newfane along the water. And I thought about this, what they had done in North Carolina. And when the plan had come up, the mayor said, this is great, we want to do it, but we're not going to hire a contractor to build it. I'm going to get each one of the local groups to take responsibility for building a piece of it. So there was a piece built by the Boy Scouts, a piece built by the Girl Scouts, a piece built by the Elk Club, and so on. And they got the whole boardwalk built by each different group taking on a piece of it. And I thought, you know, talk about a way to bring Newfane together. If there was an idea that allowed that kind of cooperation between all the different groups and elements that we have here, whether, you know, it's the painters versus the sculptors versus the carpenters versus I think we could have a lot of fun in trying to think about ways to create a project or projects that called upon the skills and involvement of different community groups.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Thank you for that. And duly noted with my blue pen here. So thank you. So that's great. I will. I think we've covered what we wanted to cover here in this section. So I think then we can safely move on to the broadband update. Is that fair with everybody? Are we good?
I'm going to sign off.
Okay.
And I look forward to reading your précis whenever you have it ready. And do we just want to set I can put together my thoughts and send that to you, Ken, to distribute to the commission?
Yes.
Okay, I will do that, and I look forward to reading your précis, and then maybe we can talk again at your next meeting.
Great. Would be delighted to have you here again for sure. And so, because this is a long-held vision that the Planning Commission and Select Board is working, you know, together consistently. That's been a vision for quite some time. So I think we're realizing it. So
that would be great. I enjoy it.
Yes, likewise.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, Ann. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so we're then at broadband update and Deerfield Valley Communications Union District. Jane.
Well, we, as a summary from the Monday Select Board meeting, I now have a second alternate to the governing board. Peter Novick lives up the road here. So now there are 3 of us from Newfane as representatives on the governing board. I'm the only one that gets to vote, though. I like that.
Yeah, well, we do too.
For the moment. The 3 of us are having a Zoom call tomorrow just to catch Peter up to where we're at. And meanwhile, I've been doing some lobbying trying to get Townsend people and Brookline people interested in joining. If you look on a map, all of Windham County and all of Bennington County and parts of Windsor and further north are all in our big district, except for Townsend and Brookline, and it's kind of a hole in the middle there. So we're trying to get them interested in becoming part of it. So I've been to the Townsend Select Board meeting and did a talk with them, and I've been talking with a couple of people in Townsend.
Wow.
Other than that, I'm also on the what do you call it? Nominating committee for the calendar year for the district is May 1st to May 1st. So as of May 1st or the May meeting, we have to re-elect all the people in charge. So I'm also working on that. And working on the communications committee, at which point I've gotten sucked into trying to help people who are just getting interested in the CUD, get them involved in it. So, but we have bids in, things are looking really good. There's a lot of interest, and we're hoping to get something going before the end of the summer. So to actually get a wire in the air, that's my personal goal, just to get one wire in the air. Then I'll feel good.
Maybe we have many wires in the air.
Well, eventually, yes, but to just get that first wire up on the pole, come on.
Absolutely. I'd like to get a picture of that.
Did you get, I sent you an email about this survey that the state is doing about, it was the questions that people were asking, or you were asking, of the select board, of whether people were more interested in getting paying a little more and waiting, paying a little less and waiting more, or paying a little more and getting it sooner. And it was that survey asked those questions, and I'm wondering if there's some way to get those questions, the responses by county or by town.
Yeah, I did look at that a bit, and I've got to talk to one of the communication committee members about that. The question really is, the dilemma that we're facing is that we have gotten bids from companies, some of whom are very large, very professional companies that are already in the internet business, who will be able to put up the system. They know how to do it. They can do it fast. However, they are not philosophically of the same mind as the CUD was originally formed, in that we would be an affordable way for people who do not have broadband now, partly because they can't afford it, to get broadband for them. So the question is, what kind of a contract do we draw up with these companies to make sure that if people can't afford broadband, that there is some kind of a subsidy? And I think there are a couple of programs through the state, and so someone is right now investigating what those are and whether we can tap into some of them. But also the idea that some of the people who wanted a CUD wanted something that was controlled by the municipalities, not by a giant corporation. And you get into a little bit of a dilemma there, because a bunch of people from a bunch of municipalities in Vermont, we don't really know how to run a big corporation. So,
I'm thinking, having seen this in telecommunications, because my partner Joanne has worked in telecommunications for 30 years, and and my ex before Joe also worked in telecommunications, and it seems like some of these small companies, their purpose is to get enough members to make them attractive to then be purchased by the big companies. So that's kind of the the things I've seen happen there. So that's just like,
Yeah.
just a piece of info.
It's kind of the question. I mean, we're very lucky. We have quite a few members of the governing board who are very knowledgeable about how to do all this. I assume that they have lots of experience in the past because we're all, a great deal of us are retired people. It is a question of how much control of it all do we turn over to someone else to run, and how much do we try to form something of our own to run it. And we kind of have to know that starting from the beginning, because that will dictate which company we pick to do some of this work.
And that was one of the when they say, what things are you interested in or are important to you, and it's like getting the fastest, getting something that isn't down all the time, and one of them was having something locally owned. And that was a situation where you put those things in order 1 to 5. So, so there, whoever's put this survey together is trying to suss out how people feel about it. The only problem I see is that the people who you are trying to serve with little or no internet access aren't getting this survey.
This has been the problem from day one. How do I find alternates to be on the board without going around and knocking on every door? Because if I put it on Front Porch Forum, who's seen it? People who have internet.
Right.
So
It's everyday direct mail is probably your best, and then a side positive might would also go to Brookline, because they're part of the zip code post office of the town of Newfane, or the village of Newfane.
And we have the budget.
Brookline is a bit of a unique town because pretty much the population of Brookline is along one road, and that one road has cable right down it. So there 90-something% of Brookline has internet,
Okay.
which may be why they're not really interested.
Yeah.
The project has three phases. Phase 1 is to get internet for the people who do not have it at all, for towns that do not have it at all, which is the 6 towns we're doing first. Phase 2 is to get it to all the towns that have some cable, but not everybody in the town. And then phase 3 is to, perhaps, if we're lucky and we don't go bankrupt and manage to hang together, to run the wire alongside the cable and give people an alternative to the existing cable company.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That would be, personally, I would like to see that. But it's a big question mark, and we have to decide at some point here how we're going. Are we going to get it done really fast by people who know what they're doing and lose control over a good deal of it? So that's.
Well, thank you, Jane, for that. Yeah, the prospect of being able to call up Comcast and say, "Oh, by the way, that's a lovely phone call. I enjoy making that one." Okay, so moving on then to zoning bylaw for short-term rentals. I have us down as a legislative update. I know, Kate, you had provided some of that already. So Kate and anyone else who wants to jump in.
Yeah, sorry, I gave that out of turn, but it seemed
No.
relevant to the conversation there. I wasn't able to get news reports beyond what, sort of the standard news outlets. And it looks like this registry, the Senate Bill 79, is going to go ahead. It requires a registry and provides a vehicle to inspect, provide safety inspections for towns that can't do it otherwise, but it doesn't limit, and there's nothing specific to short-term rentals, but it's considered a big step in that it even requires short-term rental owners to register, and that's about it. It's not gone anywhere, but it looks like it's moving, whereas the short-term rental specific regulation that the House bill, I think it's 200, that had within the definition prescribed a certain number of times a property could be rented. That one I think is languishing. I haven't been able to find new news reports. And again, someone I know just anecdotally who's following it because he has a personal interest thinks it's not going anywhere. But I didn't email the legislators, but I could.
Okay.
I think if we consider this again, it might be interesting to invite our local reps, since they have been involved in this, to
Yes.
not only advise and participate, but to hear from us and our community about what people are thinking.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Would you make that an open meeting, saying advertise it on Front Porch Forum?
Right. Right.
I think it would be interesting. I think the Brattleboro perspective is a little bit different. In Brattleboro, there's much more organizing around protecting housing, but it would be interesting for people to hear out here.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, then moving on to Development Review Board. Walt, do you have anything for us today?
Well, it's all old news today. We have a hearing for natural burial grounds coming up at the end of the month, and we're getting ready for that. And that's about it for now.
Okay. Well, we'll be going to that, I'm sure. So we're not, as a planning commission, obligated to go, but we, I think it'd be beneficial.
Welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Even go on the site visit, which
Oh, good.
absolutely.
And I'm a member of the DRB now.
Oh, you are, Lynn?
Oh, yeah.
All right. See, look at this. And so now we just have to, yes, exactly, expand the planning commission to 6 and have Walt join.
Yeah, but
So, okay. Well, then moving on to the next item on the agenda, we have trainings. And so the question, and I might do a screen share here. It's probably a good time to get this back on. It'd be a little bit easier to look at. So I'll be scrolling down here in a moment. So there are the trainings in front of us. So there should have been a question mark after attendance. We don't necessarily have to decide or discuss this right now, but this is just to alert us through the various emails that I've received that Lynn has forwarded to me, and doing a little bit of research and cutting and pasting. This is a quick summary of what we have here. So I guess the question, Lynn, we might just asking you to be especially attentive to this question here. We have a budget, and one of the line items in our budget is trainings and, you know, attendance at conferences and such. So it's my understanding that we can, you know, freely dip into that part of the budget to enhance our education and our training. What we want to do is, you know, create, make sure that if we do decide to spend these monies, that it's best, you know, best practice would be to approve it up front. And then it might be a reimbursement situation, you know, once the money, you put the money up front. If there's an issue with that, certainly we can work through that. And then we just create a paper trail so it's clear for everybody what we're doing. So it looks like the two that have an admission associated with it, from what I could tell, was the Managing Conflicts of Interest. The Public Records Act is part of the same group that's doing it, so there may be a fee associated with that. Did I put, I'm cut off here a little bit. Let me just take a look. Just wanted to look at something. Okay, there's probably a fee associated with that. And then of course the Southern Vermont Economy Summit. So, well, I guess the question is anyone interested in attending? And if so, say so that I think we might then entertain a motion to pay the registration for those who are interested in attending any or all of these.
There's also the Town Officers Education Conference next week on the 12th, 13th, and 15th. And not everything in that is pertinent. That's town officers, so that also includes, that would be your town clerks, your town listers, your town treasurers, but there are some topics on there that would be of interest to for planning.
And does that have a fee associated with it, Lynn?
I'll go look. I don't remember.
Okay. So again, there's no obligation to attend these. It's, you know, the general line is the royal we encourage it, but does anybody, would anybody like to, while Lynn is looking, does anybody have an interest in A through D?
I think the conservation subdivisions is going to be something that's really going to tie into our affordable housing.
Yeah, that's right. That
Um,
one's free.
I'm wondering if the one B, the one that was for open meeting law, I'm wondering if they have that on a recording, because that is something that every planning commission member should go through that training if they haven't already.
Agreed.
And the Public Records Act. That I'm not interested in that one, but I am in the Southern Vermont Economy Summit.
Yeah. The Public Records Act, I didn't think I would be interested, but when I looked at it, I said, oh, I'm sitting on, and this is the great part about these small towns, you know, I'm sitting on records here in the house. I did talk to Annetta, and Annetta agreed that, you know, there's more space for us. Yeah.
Where?
Well, I asked if I could upstairs, if there might be some room upstairs. And she said that Juanetta and Melissa doing some clearing and would entertain that request. I think they're quite open to it, and that would be good, because I know, Lynn, you're sitting on boxes and stuff.
Yes.
Kate, did you, I'm sorry if I missed your hand, Kate.
It looks like the two that are free would be of interest. And I haven't checked my calendar if I can do the conflicts of interest. It looks like the Southern Vermont Economy Summit would be useful, especially if it relates to money. If somebody else is attending, I don't know. We all need to, but if you're attending, Lynn,
No, we could all go.
Or a few of us have gone, so
Yeah.
it's not like just one person goes to each.
No.
I'd have to check my
All five of us could go to something like that. The budget's there.
calendar. Okay. I don't know that I would otherwise, but given the things we're talking about and that there might be information about funding specific to this moment, it seems like it might be useful.
Is the Southern Vermont Economy Summit, is that something you attend in person, or is that a Zoom?
No, Zoom.
It's a Zoom this year. It's been in person for a number of years, but and usually held over at Mount Snow.
Yeah, that's right. How about this? Because we can manage our the various, you know, we have to look at our schedules. We have to make a variety of decisions personally as it relates to this. I wonder if a general motion might be in order, and I'm just proposing the idea. I'm not proposing a motion, but the motion would be something to the effect that you know, the Planning Commission authorizes the commissioners to attend any one of these any one of these meetings with the promise of reimbursement of registration fee. Does that sound like, generally speaking, the right direction for a motion to manage this?
Yeah, I think we've done that. You might add if needed, because sometimes they will bill the town directly. So if somebody registers for something and for some reason doesn't go at all, and the town's paid for it, they have to reimburse the town.
Right, right. So would somebody be willing to craft a motion right now along the lines? I guess I could do it too, but I'm feeling as chair. Might someone be willing to cobble together a motion right now? or can I do it? Kate, go ahead. Yeah.
Hang on, I'm working on
Oh, Lynn. Okay, Lynn is.
Go ahead, Lynn.
it. Or
Okay.
somebody else has it, that's fine. The lawyer should do it.
Well, I think we have lawyers and then lawyerly inclined, but I think Lynn may be working on it. So while Lynn is doing that, I do have to say that the Southern Vermont Economy Summit, yeah, going in person, and this is appropriate or apropos of Kate's point, is that Kate, what we would do is we'd send, 3 or 4 of us, if we could, to like a conference, the Southern Vermont Economy Summit. So Lynn would be talking to these people over there. I'd be talking to those people over there. I mean, we would cover the room. And then on the way back home, especially when it was up in Lake Maury or other places, where we'd go to these meetings, we'd be talking about it all the way home, about all the people we spoke with and things we learned as we covered the room. So that's the kind of thing that we all, I think, miss right now.
Okay. Okay, got it. Okay, so I move that Planning Commission members may attend the list of trainings, ABCD, with registration fees paid by or paid through the Planning Commission budget.
Yes. Did you, were you interested in adding that point about, there was the if needed, and then there was the other point about if you don't go, but you committed to going, you.
I don't think.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, Lynn, if you could read that again, and if we could get a second, thanks, Lynn, for rereading.
Sure. I move the Planning Commission members may attend the trainings for conservation subdivisions, managing conflicts of interest, Public Records Act, and Southern Vermont Economy Summit, with registration fees paid as needed by the Planning Commission budget or from the Planning Commission budget.
Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second.
Great. Do we have, I think then we can go to a vote. All those in favor of this motion as seconded, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Lynn, for doing that. And I think that covers our base in a big way. All right. So moving then to new business. I believe this is new business, so hence I put it here. Hazard mitigation. So apparently, Wyndham Regional Commission and Newfane are engaged in 2 separate meetings, April 12 and 21. And while it's my understanding, and anyone please jump in if you know more about this, because it may have been discussed on April 5th at the select board meeting, but apparently Jay Wilson is, going to be involved in this. So it pertains to roads and, the upkeep of our infrastructure in that way. But I think it may go broader than that. It seems like where this is being dedicated, we have 2 nights that are, or 2 evening meetings that are dedicated to this. And so the question is, are we interested in attending? How do we see our involvement? Or maybe that answer to that question just comes by way of just showing up and seeing what's going on. Does anybody have any thoughts about this?
Can we attend just one of them? Because I looked at the dates and I have a conflict on one of the dates, but I can attend one of them. I would be interested.
I would imagine. I don't think we're obligated to go to both. So Jane, you say you can go to one.
Yeah, I think the first one I could make.
I mean, I could go to the 21st.
Yeah, I'm trying to look at my calendar here.
and I'm sorry I don't have more detail on this. I think there was an email that went to all of us with an attachment. Let me take a look real quick. I'm going to just go into my email and see if I can find a little bit more about this. And so I'm looking at my email, but if anybody wants to weigh in on this.
I was going to say that I could attend the 21st as well.
Yeah, I can attend the 21st. The 12th is also the town officer conference, and they have a session on creative placemaking. But I don't know what time the hazard mitigation is happening.
6 p.m.
Oh, okay.
The flyer says 6 to 7:30.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
feel like I should be able to do that.
Okay, so you did find the flyer?
Yeah, do you want me to re-forward it to all of you or try to share it?
I've got it right here.
Oh, okay.
There it is.
If the sessions are the same, I can probably make the 21st. The 12th is harder for me.
So here it is. Yeah, check this out. Interesting, isn't it?
Especially since it's in the town plan, I found it interesting that we just happened to find out about it.
Well, I have to say, Lynn, that struck me as well. I was wondering about that. It's like, well, how is it that we're finding out about this in this manner?
Yeah.
Would the commission, I mean, I would tread lightly and be kind, of course, but maybe I could reach out to Margot just to kind of, check in perhaps on this point.
Sure. I think that's a great idea.
Just say, hey, Margot, just sort of raise my hand and say,
Hey,
Margot.
Margot, why didn't you tell us about this? This is Planning Commission. Hello, Diva.
Right. Yeah.
She might be one of the new ones. I don't recognize the name.
Yeah. Well, in any event, yeah, I could just sort of fly the flag a little bit of the Planning Commission and just say we're, the number of any number of combinations of us will be there on either 12 or 21 or both. So I'll do that. I'll reach out to Margot and just check in. Okay, well, good. So I'm going to stop share on this unless anybody, are we good with this?
Ken, can we go back to the prior list of the trainings?
Absolutely.
So I looked up the Town Officers Education Conference. There are possibly 3 things that might be interesting. I think you guys already took creative placemaking, but there's an hour session on April 12th from 1:30 to 2:30 on creative placemaking. And then again, that's one of those situations where you get those wonderful ideas that other places have done.
Yeah.
On the 13th, they have one at 10:30. It's the 2020 Census and You. And the only reason I say anything about that is that we might be able to get some of the information around current poverty levels in Newfane, and if that information is available and how to get it. And then the third one is also on the 13th. It's a keynote address, the hard work of making Vermont look natural, which I find a really weird topic.
Yes.
Since I think it looks natural. So anyway, those things, if you want, I'll send that flyer out again.
Could you, Lynn?
Okay.
Yeah. Because this is familiar, but not familiar enough. And so that flyer would really do the trick because, well, for all of us, right, we're all very busy. And so when you see Southern Vermont Economy Summit, May 12th through 14, you think, oh my gosh, 3 whole days, but it's not quite like that these days, right? Because that was a 1-day conference before, as I recall. So they might be just stretching things out an hour here, an hour and a half there, which is fair. That's the only way we can really manage to Zoom it right at this point.
Right.
Okay, good. So I think we're,
One other thing, the Southern Vermont, I know that's not till May, but the Southern Vermont Economy Conference, sometimes with registrations, you do the registration and say, and then they ask if you're going to add someone and then add someone. So that might be good to just register as a group if we end up having a final number. Or not, easier for the treasurer if, I'm trying to find here if they can be billed to the town. And I don't know that yet.
yeah, which means that I think in the past, it's what either comes out of our budget or sometimes is there a line item in the town budget to pay for some training that we go to? I don't know.
No, it's our training budget.
Yeah. So Melissa would manage that. And okay. So, and what Lynn and I did with respect to that motion is just to provide, a paper trail again for the budget and such and transparency. Okay, then I don't have correspondence. Does anybody else have correspondence? All right, well then hearing no correspondence, then we can move to adjournment, I do believe, and I'm showing 7:56. Is that right, Nolan?
I have 7:59.
So I'd like to, might we have a motion to adjourn at 7:59?
I so move.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor of adjourning at 7:59, say aye.
I
Aye.
All right, well, thank you all.